It is honestly hard to believe some of the roadside attractions you see when driving across America. Things that sometimes don't even come up in Google Maps, and don't even have computerized registers when you buy something. There are still attractions like that out there. Ones that don't seem to have changed since the 1970s. A couple of friends and I decided to embark on what you'd call a great American road trip, and seek out these peculiar old places existing outside of time. We began the adventure in Reno, heading across the desert to Las Vegas. I had heard that there were several weird places out on that drive. It seemed like a perfect starting point. The first place we stopped at was an attraction called Scotty's Castle, and it really is just this massive Spanish-looking castle out in the middle of the desert. The inside was closed due to some flooding, but we were able to walk around outside and check out the stunning views. The flooding also caused it to be extremely empty, which really added to the desolate vibe of the place. My friends were getting some footage for a travel vlog they were shooting in front of the castle. I'm not really much for being on camera, so I just decided to look around the side of the castle. As I explored, gazing out into the massive terrain, the blistering sun beat down on me to the point where I had to squint my eyes from inside my sunglasses. From the corner of my eye, I saw something that seemed out of place. It was red, metallic, and rusty, just sitting out in the desert. I looked back over at my friends, and since they still seemed busy, I went to check it out. I approached and began to recognize what it was. One of those old popcorn machines they used to use in carnivals. But the craziest thing was it had popcorn inside of it. Like fresh, hot popcorn, popping inside of it. Was I hallucinating? How could it be doing that? I was kind of nursing a hangover from the night before and hadn't drank a lot of water, but this was ridiculous. Then I looked up and saw something that shocked me, even further out in the desert. It was a clown. One of those traditional white face-painted ones with red hair and a jumpsuit. It was slowly gesturing for me to approach. That was when my friend Jason grabbed my shoulder. "What are you doing, man?" he asked. "Did you see that?" Jason shook his head as I looked back and noticed the clown was gone. "I saw this." I stopped myself, thinking that what I was about to say was going to make me look like a total lunatic. "Come on back and be in the video, man. This place is amazing," Jason said, turning and walking back towards the castle. I followed him and helped them shoot the remainder of it. Eventually we got back to the car, and as soon as we started driving, the sun started to slowly set in the distance. Jason began telling our other friend Teddy about how he found me on the desert horrified. I played it off as if I had been feeling dehydrated or something. I knew at that point I was already kind of ready for this trip to be over, though. That was when Jason noticed a bright lit up sign in the distance. As we approached, I could recognize it was shaped like a giant clown and read, "The world famous clown Motel." Of course, Jason went nuts for an attraction like that and immediately looked it up on his phone. The place was literally too good to be true for a video, or just for anyone who is a fan of scary stuff in general. It's a motel where the lobby is literally filled with clown mannequins and replicas, as well as bordering a graveyard right next door. I started to get freaked out and told him about what I'd seen out in the desert earlier. The coincidence was just too much for me not to. Of course, at that point, though, they just assumed I was messing with them, playing into the creepy vibe of the whole thing. Before I knew it, we were walking towards the office to check in for the night. I guess it was the off-season, because the motel was completely dead. We stepped into the lobby and no one was in there. Jason had checked in online, and the crazy thing was, although there wasn't someone working, our room key was sitting in an envelope up at the front desk. Normally I would find that practice really strange, but Teddy said he used to work at a place where they do it all the time. So I grabbed the keys and started reading this story on the wall about how the hotel's owner loved clowns and was still buried in the graveyard beside the hotel. That was comforting. Of course, right when I finished the story, like clockwork, some damn clown animatronic in the lobby malfunctioned and started giggling. Anyways, Jason wanted to start filming immediately, so he took his camera out and we headed to the room. I put on a movie as he was getting stuff ready, and just started taking in the atmosphere of the place. In fact, I kind of started calming down a bit, but I guess that was my mistake. Jason decided to walk back to the lobby to try to find the motel manager for an interview, and me and Teddy said we were just going to hang out in the room for a little bit. As soon as he left, Teddy went to the bathroom to take a shower, and I changed the channel, which of course ended up being the original TV movie of It. Talk about coincidences. Then I heard a tap on the front window of the room. I went to open the curtains and there wasn't anyone out there. I was pretty freaked out, but at that point Jason coming back to scare me was definitely not out of the question. In fact, I'd say it was pretty likely for his video. So I opened the door and stepped out to see what I could find. And first thing I noticed was he wasn't hiding next to the door or anything. Then I saw something blurry floating out in the distance. I took a step towards it and noticed it was a balloon out in the parking lot. Only instead of it floating higher into the air or moving away, it just hovered there in one place at the same height, eerily not moving at all. I sauntered towards it and began to realize there were other balloons floating there at the same height as well. This realization was followed by the terrifying echo of a laugh coming from out in the darkness. I ran back into the room so fast and tried to tell Teddy about the balloons, but he was standing outside the bathroom area, just staring in the mirror without any clothes on. His red hair was messy and all frizzed up, and looked like he had been rubbing something on his face. "Teddy," I said, concerned. He didn't respond. Then I noticed a bottle of Clorox up on the sink next to him. My gut sank as I noticed in the mirror what was happening. His nose and eyes were colored red with blood as he rubbed bleach into his peeling face. His expression looked as if he was in excruciating pain, but that he had no choice in what he was doing. I tried to pull his hands away, but he screamed and shoved me back. Knowing we had to get him out of there and to a hospital, I ran out of the room to try and get Jason. I ran down the sidewalk of the empty motel, and by the time I got to the lobby, I saw it was empty. There was a brochure on the counter, though, for the graveyard connected to the motel. I figured maybe he'd seen that and went to go shoot his video there. As I headed towards the graveyard, I found something on the ground that horrified me. It was his camera, just lying there in the dirt. I knew Jason, and I knew he would never have put that thing in the dirt like that. So I kept going out in the desert, this time screaming his name, half panicked. I came across a large dugout hole in the ground. Only it wasn't like it had been dug by one person. It was as if several things had busted out from different places underground. I then looked into the hole and saw Jason's hat was inside of it. "Jason!" I screamed, freaking out. There was no answer. At least not from Jason. I started hearing giggling from the darkness in all directions. I looked up and started to notice the clowns coming towards me, approaching from everywhere. I took off back towards the room, running as fast as I could, but by the time I got back, Teddy was already gone. He was just hanging there outside the room with a bundle of balloons around his neck. I tried to run to the car, but it wouldn't start. Once I got out of it, I noticed the hood had been popped. Around the corner, a clown with giant purple hair began to approach with this insane grin. At that point, I just started running. I didn't even know where I was going, out into the night with nothing on my mind except getting away from there. I ran and ran until finally my luck turned around and I saw this giant semi-truck approaching from off in the distance. I was able to wave him down and jumped in as the purple-haired clown grabbed my leg. I slammed the door in his hand and the driver accelerated, never looking back. My theory is, this sort of thing has happened many times at that clown motel. I know there are several people who have visited and lots of videos on the matter, but remember those were all at certain times and certain situations. Whatever is going on there, whatever entity is controlling all this, it knows that it can't do what it did to us all the time. So it just waits, observing as people come and go and do their little paranormal investigations and such. Just anticipating a night when a couple lonely travelers who won't be missed stumble into its clutches once again. Which is why I definitely recommend that no matter how badly you want to, no matter how creepy and cool it seems, do not go visit the Clown Motel. Hey, it's Mr. Freaky. Thanks for tuning in this evening for this terrifying tale. Would you ever stay in the Clown Motel? If you would, you're braver than me. As always, like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so, as well as join the Discord to get involved with the community. Have a horrific evening, everyone, and remember to stay spooky, my friends.